Hello, and welcome back. Today we're going to be reading one of my childhood favorites, The Emperor's New Clothes. Many years ago, there lived an emperor who loved new clothes so much that he spent all his money on fancy outfits. He didn't care much about meeting with his generals, or visiting the theater, or even going for a ride in the park. He was interested only in showing off the latest addition to his wardrobe. Life was very merry in the capital city, with new visitors arriving every day. One day, two scoundrels appeared in the city. They told everyone that they were weavers, and that they could weave the most beautiful and luxurious cloth imaginable. Not only were the colors rich and the patterns fabulous, they claimed, but the fabric also had the wonderful quality of remaining invisible to anyone who was unfit for his or her position or who was remarkably stupid. Now, this must be splendid cloth indeed, the emperor thought. Why, if I were to wear a suit made of that cloth, I would know who in my kingdom was unqualified for his job. And I could easily distinguish between the wise and the foolish. I simply must have some of that marvelous fabric woven for me. The emperor ordered that the two weavers be paid a large sum of gold right away, so that they could start to work on his clothes without delay. Soon these so-called weavers set up a loom and pretended to be hard at work, but in reality they did nothing, for the loom was empty. They requested spools of the finest threads made from silk and gold, but these were put into their own knapsacks. Then they returned to the empty loom, where they resumed their pretend work until late into the night. Everyone in town had heard of the wonderful fabric and its amazing qualities, and all were eager to see just how wise or foolish their neighbors might be. I should like to see how my cloth is coming along, the emperor said to himself several days later. But when he remembered that anyone who was stupid or unfit for his office would be unable to see the marvelous fabric, he thought it better of going himself. Of course, I will be able to see the fabric, he thought, but I believe I shall send my honest old minister first. He has always been fair and wise. So the minister was sent to call upon the weavers, and soon he arrived in the shop where the two swindlers sat working at the empty loom. Oh my, he thought as he gazed upon the loom wide-eyed. I cannot see a single thread. But the minister said nothing. Come closer, sir, the wily weavers graciously invited him to step up for a better look. They asked his opinion of the intricate pattern and wanted to know if he admired the luminous colors, all the while pointing and gesturing to the empty loom. The poor old minister opened his eyes even wider and adjusted his spectacles, but he still couldn't see anything because, in fact, there was nothing to see. My goodness, he thought, am I unfit for my royal office? How embarrassing it would be if anyone were to find out. So he didn't dare admit that he couldn't see the miraculous fabric. Why, it's very pretty. Quite, enchanting, said the old minister, squinting. I shall tell the emperor that I'm very pleased with it. Thank you, sir, the pretend weavers beamed, and they went on to describe in great detail all the colors they had chosen and the name of their particular pattern. The old minister nodded and listened attentively, trying to remember every word so that he'd have something to tell the emperor. And that is just what he did. Soon the emperor sent another member of his court to see when the cloth would be ready. It was the same with this gentleman as it had been with the old minister. He looked carefully at the loom, but could see no fabric. Don't you think our cloth is beautiful? Gushed the swindlers. The minister loved it, and they pretended to run their hands across the fabric. I know that I am not stupid, the officer thought, so it must be that I am not worthy of my imperial appointment. It's ridiculous, but for the sake of my position at court, I must let no one know that I cannot see the cloth. So he also praised the fabric, complimenting the weavers on the rich colors and delightful design. Yes, your majesty, I too found the cloth quite enchanting, he told the emperor. The whole town was talking about the wonderful cloth. At last the emperor went to see it for himself, accompanied by members of his court, including the two faithful officials who had already seen the imaginary fabric. Isn't it magnificent? Cried the two royal officials. What a splendid design! What gorgeous colors! They said, pointing to the empty loom, for they believed that the others could truly see the cloth. What is this? Thought the emperor. I don't see a thing. Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be the emperor? goodness, that would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Yes, it is indeed beautiful, said the Emperor. It has our highest approval. He nodded contentedly, gazing with pleasure at the empty loom. All those attending him now strained their eyes to see if they could see anything, but they saw no more than the others. Nevertheless, they all exclaimed, "It is beautiful," just as the Emperor had, and suggested that His Majesty should have a suit of clothes made of the magnificent material in time for the upcoming procession through town. The swindlers sat up the entire night before the procession was to take place. They pretended to roll the fabric off the loom, pretended to cut it out with a huge pair of scissors, and stitched away with needles without any thread in them. At last they declared, "Now the Emperor's new clothes are ready." The Emperor came in, and the scoundrels each held out an arm as if they were carrying something precious, and said, "Here are your Majesty's trousers, and your jacket, and your robe," and so on. "Now, would it please your Majesty to step behind these curtains and take off your clothes," asked the scoundrels, "so that we may dress you in front of the mirror." So the Emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to fasten, lace, and button him into each new article of clothing. Meanwhile, the Emperor turned this way and that in front of the mirror. "Oh, how wonderful your Majesty looks in his new clothes! And how well they fit!" cried all the nobles. "What a pattern! What colors! These are indeed robes worthy of your Majesty. The canopy this is to be carried over your Majesty, and the procession is waiting outside," announced the Master of Ceremonies. "Yes, I am quite ready," said the Emperor. "Doesn't the new suit fit me well?" And he turned once more to look at himself in the mirror so that everyone might see just how much he admired the wonderful garments. The chamberlains, who usually carried the end of the Emperor's long robe, fumbled with their hands on the ground as if they were lifting the trailing hem. They pretended to carry it as the Emperor began the procession, but they didn't dare let the people know that they could see nothing. And so the Emperor marched, and everyone in the street who saw him, and all those leaning out of the windows exclaimed, "Look at how marvelous the Emperor's new clothes are, and how well they fit him." No one said they could see nothing, for that would mean that they were unfit for office, or were simpletons. Suddenly, from the crowd, a small child said, "But the Emperor has no clothes on!" "Good heavens," someone else said in hushed tone. "Did you hear what that child said? The Emperor has no clothes." It started as a whisper from one person to the next, but soon everyone was talking until finally the whole crowd exclaimed, "The Emperor has no clothes!" The Emperor himself began to worry because he was afraid they might be right. But, he thought, the procession must go on. And so he walked, even more stiffly than before, and the chamberlains followed behind, carrying the hem of a robe that wasn't there. And now here we have the story of the Little Red Hen. One day, the Little Red Hen and her chicks were scratching around in the barnyard when they found a few grains of wheat. "Aha!" the hen said to her brood. "This is good fortune. If we plant this grain, by the end of the summer, we could have a nice little harvest." But she knew that if they wanted to harvest the wheat later, there was work to do now. So she gathered the grains and asked her friends if they would lend a hand. "Who will help me plant the wheat?" asked the Little Red Hen. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the dog. "Not I," said the duck. "Well, then I will do it myself," said the Little Red Hen. And so she found a small patch of open ground and set to work. She hoed and raked and worked the soil until it was ready, and then she planted the grain and watered it. It wasn't long before tiny green shoots were sprouting up through the newly tilled soil. Seeds had begun to grow. All that summer, as the sun shone and the rain fell, those tiny sprouts grew bigger and bigger. At last they were full-grown plants with golden heads of wheat. "Even more good fortune," said the Little Red Hen. "The time has come to harvest our little patch. Who will help me harvest the wheat?" she asked. "Not I," said the dog. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the duck. "Well, then I will do it myself," said the Little Red Hen, and so she took a sickle and cut the stalks of wheat, and when she was done, she gathered them in the bundles and left them to dry in the field. Soon the wheat had dried and was ready to be threshed. To separate the edible grains from the straw, "Who will help me thresh the wheat?" asked the Little Red Hen. "Not I," said the dog. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the duck. "Well, then I will have to do it myself," said the Little Red Hen, and so she threshed the wheat and put the grain into a burlap bag. It's time to have the grain ground into flour. Who will help me take the grain to the mill? Asked the little red hen. Not I, said the dog. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the duck. Well, then I guess I will have to do it myself, said the little red hen. And so she loaded the bag of wheat into a wheelbarrow and took it to the mill. There the miller ground it into fine white flour. How fortunate we are to have this bag of wonderful flour, said the little red hen to her chicks. And I know just what to do with it. We should make bread. Who will help me bake the bread? Asked the little red hen. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the dog. Not I, said the duck. Well, then I will have to do it myself, said the little red hen. And to the flour she added milk and eggs, water and salt, a bit of sugar, some fresh butter and yeast. Then she mixed them all together and kneaded the dough carefully. Soon it was ready to be put into a hot oven, where it was baked until it had a golden brown crust. When the finished bread was set out to cool, it filled the air with the most glorious aroma, mouth-watering. Now, who will help me eat the bread? Asked the little red hen. I will, said the dog. I will, said the cat. I will, said the duck. Well, I wouldn't count on it, said the little red hen. If you don't share the work, you can't share the bread. Then the little red hen and her chicks sat down to enjoy the delicious freshly baked bread. And as they ate, they remembered the day not long ago when they had the good fortune of finding a few grains of wheat. This is another story that was read to me a few times as a child, and I'm definitely happy to share here today. This one is called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Once upon a time, a group of villagers hired a boy to watch over their sheep. Day in and day out, he guarded the flock as they grazed upon the hillsides beyond the village gates. One afternoon, the shepherd boy grew tired of his job and wondered how he could liven things up. Looking down on the town from a hillside, he had an idea. Wolf! Wolf! He cried. A wolf is attacking the sheep! Upon hearing this, the townspeople dropped whatever they were doing and grabbed rakes, shovels, sticks, and axes, anything that might help protect their sheep from the hungry wolf, and ran to the boy, ready to fight. Ha 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 ha! The boy laughed when he saw their worried faces. You should see yourselves. I fooled you. Grumbling, the villagers returned to their town. The next afternoon, the boy pulled the prank again. Wolf! Wolf! He cried. Oh, it's horrible! If only someone would help me! Within minutes, the villagers came running, just like they had the day before. Ha 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 ha! The boy laughed. I tricked you again. On the way back to town, the angry villagers wondered if they had hired the wrong person to protect their flock. Shortly after the boy was left alone with the sheep, a wolf leaped out of the forest. Wolf! Wolf! Cried the boy. Help! A wolf is attacking the sheep! The townspeople, who had just gotten back to the village, heard the cries, and they only shook their heads. Tomorrow we'll hire someone who isn't always trying to make fools out of us, they said as they returned to their homes. Without help, the boy was no match for the wolf, and it soon carried off all the sheep it wanted. The boy ran to town crying, Why didn't anyone come when I called? You should know by now, said the mayor. No one believes a liar, even when he's telling the truth.